Hello everybody and welcome back to the long-awaited episode 5. Now, a lot of you have probably unsubscribed, but, sorry. As you see, I've gotten good at animation, and I decided to stop using Filmora. I'm using CapCut now since there's no massive watermark across the screen. Also, sorry if I stutter a lot, it's just something not really important, but I do all these videos without a script. It comes out of the top of the head. Right now, I'm not at the point that I want to do script making yet, so hope you can understand that. Anyways, let's start the video. First, I forgot about all these layers. Anyways, let's get started with the video. So, a fan requested this. They want a war between the yellow and green team. Now, myself, it's been so long since I did episode 4 that I don't really know what I was actually doing, but I can for sure tell you that I'm going to get rid of a lot of this India, because they would certainly not be that big. Anyways, the war between the yellow team and the blue team. Green team, sorry, I just stuttered. Oh my goodness. Anyways, see, the yellow team really loved those Indian prophets of theirs, and since those Indian prophets were basically their only reason to exist, if they ever really run out of them, they're done for. Now, as I said last episode, their country is holding on by a string. Yeah, they're barely really alive right now, so a war would definitely break them apart. But they don't care about that stuff. They only care about money, 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 I tell you. So, they would go to war with the green team. So let's just make a war color for these guys right now. So, to make war color, anyone ever wants to recreate my videos, the way I make war colors is turning this down to 50. Yeah, that's all I do. Anyways, also use the pencil tool. The pencil tool is amazing. Anyways, an offensive would start. I'm going to use the recolor. Okay. So an offensive would start to get. Where is the green team cap? Did their capital just disappear? Okay, let's just pretend this not happen. Anyways, the yellow team would try to take the coast due to being the most valuable areas. So, sorry, I haven't prepared this yet. I just clicked record on OBS. Anyways, an offensive would occur into the green team, officially marking the Indian War, which obviously isn't what it was called. It isn't called in this universe. Obviously, it isn't going to be called that. But an offensive would start along the coast, trying to get the most valuable parts of the green team and getting them to surrender. And they'd go along the coast, trying to get the most valuable parts, as I already said. But anyways, something else would be happening. You know, this team? Yeah, they're gonna shatter into pieces. Because, well, they have holdings in the Philippines, Taiwan, and China. Now, these two are going to stay loyal, but these people, well, they see themselves way more connected to the purple-ish team than actually be connected to these guys. So, well, they're going to choose to join them. And there would be no real resistance either. So it would just be a peaceful breakaway. Let's get back to war. The yellow team would continue advances into the green team. And not much response to come from the green team, surprisingly, until there was a response. The green team would begin marching straight for the capital, as they were preparing for this from the start of the war. This would take the yellow team absolutely by surprise. And their already disloyal population would grow even more disloyal. So, as the march to the yellow team's capital would occur, a people's revolt. Sorry, not people's revolt. We haven't reached communism yet. A simple revolt and breakaway states would occur. First off, the state would break away in the north. Basically, they didn't see themselves as connected to the south as they had been recently acquired territory, as well as recently acquired territory from the green team from the very short-lived personal union. Many disloyal territories to the yellow team would come back to the green team. The green team's advance to the capital would manage to be halted, not after some damage had been done. Eventually, the green team would manage to push the yellow team out of there. Also, remember how I said that the Indian subcontinent was way too big? Yeah, that's about to change. Both of these nations, though they look strong, are still hanging on a thread. a thread that is about to grow loose. Most of the entirety of the north and a bit of the east coast would secede from the Green Team. As, well, they didn't really like the king anymore. The king had just not treated them as fair as the area that had the most population density, aka the south. Though this area would also devolve into chaos, as a more northern state would break away from this state, which would also break east. People from this side would also, well, break apart. Anyway, this team up here would also keep breaking apart, as the Green Empire had been way too overstretched, and they met their fate. India was just never supposed to survive, and when I made them expand, I never really realized how much they had expanded. So this episode, I just decided to make them smart, as they say. Right now, the war has basically reached a stalemate, and peace, finally, would be reached. Not without some very heavy implications for the Green Team, and the Yellow Team to some extent, which somehow was still holding together. Talking about holding together, let's make them collapse. People in the more mountainous areas of the country would just break apart for nearly the same reasons as the pastel yellow team. And though they wouldn't be large, they would still be a country that would really have a similar ideology to this colored team. Though they were still both on the same par, even though the green team had lost way more. So let's knock them down even more. People from nearly the entirety of the country, other than the more population-dense areas, would just break away as well. No one really wanted to be part of this loose confederation, and they'd both break apart pretty peacefully, which is a first for everything in this series. Since break-aparts normally involve war, like the very big break-apart of the red team. Because obviously they aren't supposed to get all the way to China. But I'm a dum-dum, aren't I? Now let's get to the problem of the orange team, or better, the Orange Empire. See, if you look at this, you can tell they are a bit overstretched. Like, very overstretched. I don't know why I'm doing this. And being overstretched is never a good thing, as shown with the Mesopotamian Peninsula, breaking apart from them. The orange team was pretty overexpanded, as I said, so they would also begin to collapse. In the Civil War, a more radicalist party would arise and were modern-day Qingdaoists. It would also spring up around Korea, and this peninsula, I don't know what it's called, and the Orange Team's government wasn't really informed of these uprisings. They didn't even know that the uprisings were happening. All they knew were that some people were kinda mad in these areas and that they kinda wanted to break apart, but they hadn't really done it yet. Little did they know they'd already done it yet and set up a new regime in the east. So this new regime would continue expanding. Most of Manchuria would fall to the new regime, and Korea would begin to fall too, until finally the Orange Team was informed of what was happening on the mainland, but it was too late, as they'd be kicked out of the entirety of Korea. They'd managed to kick them back from, I don't remember what this river is called, and I can't really draw the border right here, so just pretend this is an accurate North Korean border with China. They'd push them back to I think it's the Yalu River, but then they'd get pushed back. Very heavily as well. As they'd get pushed back to modern-day South Korea. Oh my gosh, I'm terrible with words today. They'd get pushed back even more, and now we're having references of the Korean War. That was cringe. Anyways, the Japanese would be kicked off the mainland, but would remain on their islands, retaining all control on said islands. Next, a tiny border conflict with the Navy team would result in them losing the entirety of Sakhalin, as well the Orange Team had basically been literally Taiwan. These people would lose influence over their kind of puppet state over this area of China, and instead it would go over to these guys, which will now be known as the Brown Team, since that's essentially what they are. The Brown Team would move their capital to Korea, specifically a new city that had been founded near the Yalu River. which was flourishing at the time. Anyways, the world had finally began to come to a rest, while these jungle people were still colonizing Australia. One by one, the more they went, the hotter it got, and the more difficult it got for them to colonize Australia. They saw what was going on here. They just said, "Screw this! I'm not going here. This is really bad." Sorry to all my Australian viewers, if I have any, actually. I might have in the future, but right now I may not have any Australians. Now that I'm already over here, let's go do some silly things to these guys. For example, PTSD people, the red team is invading, guess what? The purple team again! And it isn't really a surprise anymore. I really want the purple team. I don't think that's an underestimate. By now they've evolved their battle tactics, and, well, the pink team had pretty much been stuck in time. So it would be really easy for the red team to just come in and take them all. Which is exactly what they did. With little to no resistance on the east, as the pink team had no way of believing that the red team, the one that had been born back from the maroon team, was back. But they were wrong. Red team troops would storm the coasts and absolutely terrify people. So, ravaging, scavenging, and doing every war crime that would be a war crime right now. But there was no such thing as a war crime back in these times, so they saw nothing wrong with it. Oh, it's raining now, nice. They'd reach this river and would call it a stopping point, per se. The red team would make even more advances. The magenta team would get pushed back heavily, as their entire army was really focused around the capital. Thinking about the capital, it was beginning to get a siege, and siege it was. Though it was pretty defended on this tiny peninsula, so for now, let's just let that slide. Anyway, these guys would absolutely get destroyed as they were cut off from most of the rest of the army, and they'd all slowly collapsed to the red team. All former red team countries were beginning to worry about their future, as the red team infamously has tried to reclaim all lost land. So eventually, the magenta team would manage to kick them out of this area specifically. Yeah, that area specifically. The red team, even though being in control of literally all of this, trying to get the capital as it's, well, the best region to get. But they'd have no avail. As the now oldest country in the world, well, eventually, both sides would just get tired of fighting, so they'd sign peace. Which, the peace looks very much like this. Pink team would get pushed down all the way to the capital, losing out on everything else. Like, literally everything else. They'd also have to become a semi-puppet of the red team, even though that was never heavily implemented. Anyways, the world is terrified again as the red team has expanded. And remember how I said in episode 4 that the maroon team got kicked out to Australia? Yeah, that's a thing now. The maroon team's government would begin, not continue, they were never really doing it here, gaining supporters after an act of heroicness in one of the major cities of Australia. Eventually, the northern tip would eventually gain their full loyalty. If no one was down there, it would just fall. And due to poor communication between Australia and the capital, which is all the way over here in Jakarta, but these guys, now seeing that they had been exiled from all the way over here, would begin trying to claim the unclaimable, Australia. They'd expand their claims all the way over here, so these guys would go along the coast of Australia by discovering new areas that they never really thought existed, because anyways, Australia begins being colonized. They make it to this part of Australia, explore some more, and then just absolutely give up. They decide to develop this before trying to claim anything else. Which is a smart decision. Without exploring, everyone's kind of done with exploring for now. No one really wants to go north since as evidence from these guys, it gets really cold, except for a group of people who just really want to see the world. See, when they reached here, they discovered the Euphrates River. I forgot the other river's name, sorry. Oh, the Tigris and Euphrates River. They saw that it was a really good place to live. So, they'd go up the Tigris and Euphrates River. slowly discovering the Fertile Crescent. Eventually, a new state would be established here. They have nothing to do with the blue team. I don't know. They have nothing to do with the blue team, but I just decided to color them some blue. Anyway, they'd established their country over here. And meanwhile, these guys had continued exploring the Arabian Peninsula, finding a desert upon desert. Yeah, there was really nothing over here. They really thought something of very much importance was here. After all, their god of black diamonds had promised them something was here, but there was nothing. The god had lied to them. They would find out that was false in like a century or something. And this is like Mesopotamian era, so they're gonna find that out when America exists, which it probably will never. The god of black diamonds, Zulu, wasn't really wrong. There very much are black diamonds here, just not in the way they would expect, or better, in a completely different state of matter. Liquid. Yep. They foretold oil to really be useful to them for like a really long time, until like the Industrial Revolution. Yeah. Also, so you know, all of this hasn't just happened in a month. Already from when the series started, maybe like 100, maybe even 1,000, no, not 1,000, like 500 to 300 years have passed. That's a lot. But as for the amount of exploration, for the amount of things that have happened, that's a reasonable time frame. Anyways, these guys are thinking that there was something would expand their country over, and they'd expand their country more into the Tigris and Euphrates, claiming lands that they didn't even know existed, claiming the entirety of the Fertile Crescent in their dreams. They already knew kind of what was going on here, but never really discovered it. Discover they did. Eventually they thought that the land was going to go on forever, as it had proved. It really seemed to go on and on and on and on and on. But little do they know, they were about to hit gold. They'd follow the Fertile Crescent south, and eventually, they'd find the Mediterranean. Immediately, people would start rushing over here. I mean rushing in dozens. People were extremely excited for this discovery. People really were hopeful for the future, and for what was to come. Eventually, the Fertile Crescent would be discovered entirely. And the blue team we can now refer to as Mesopotamia. That's practically what they are. Crescent yet. See, this is how you draw a crescent, people. The Arabian desert down south is very unpleasant to be in. No, they just completely ignore it. As it was nothing compared to the jackpot that they had gotten in Mesopotamia. They had really struck gold with this one, and they didn't even know it. The entirety of the ocean. From here, they could have accessed this and this and this, but they don't have that technology yet. All they could hope go north, but for now, they'd take a rest to build themselves up for what was to come. About that the exploration team would begin expanding north. Not really expanding though, as their name is literally the exploration. Let's expel people, baby! Exploration team. Just kidding. Exploration team. They wouldn't claim anything though, and they'd just head north, as they knew that the area above was going to be hot. They'd get off of the Iranian mountain ranges, since it's a mountain. People aren't prepared for mountains yet other than these guys, but I mean, they just claimed their country on a mountain. It isn't really well populated there. They'd find their way to the Caspian, which they would wrap around, but not really do anything. Eventually, these guys would kind of just decide that they didn't really want this area anymore. It was really useless, and they never really built up their country, so they did a bit of land exchange with the Punjab country, and after some talks, part of the area was discarded to them. By part of the area, I mean the entire area. What did I mean part of the area? The Punjab team had just gotten a massive expansion. They didn't really know what to do with that massive expansion, so they just really stayed there. Anyway, the progress would halt over here. But these people go south. South, south, south. They'd keep exploring the Holy Land, which to them isn't really holy. And they'd find the beginning of the Suez Canal. They'd begin to go and see that they were probably somewhere, they'd slowly go on the coast, and they'd slowly go around the Sinai Peninsula, realizing that, hey, we're on a peninsula! And right now, eventually, they'd make it and realize, yeah, this is a peninsula. Eventually, they'd stop once they got the entirety of the Sinai Peninsula, but not without claiming some extra territory. The entirety of the Holy Land would go under their rule, which there were some people living there already, mostly immigrants from these guys and these guys, but not a significant population. Eventually, these two would begin venturing into Arabia. These people would just stick around the coast, since, as I said in previous episodes, this is not fun. The Arabian desert is not fun. So these guys are mostly just going to stick around it. These people would explore south, and basically Oman, Yemen, South Arabia, which is what I'm going to call them, expands. I'm just going to call it expands now, this is stupid. Explores north, as explorers from both teams would eventually meet, and they'd basically have the entirety of the Arabian Peninsula mapped out, as they knew that this was a massive desert. So none of them really dared to claim land in places other than, well, the places people really wanted to live. These guys would claim this side of the coast, getting modern-day Mecca, and these guys would get this side of the coast and these guys would get this side of the coast and expand slightly northward. Now, the Arabian desert isn't exactly fully explored, but they do know a desert is there, and that's enough for me to count it as explored. And also, we'll divide this little piece of coast up. Eventually, the exploration team would expand upward to here, and they'd all meet up, as India, Arabia, and China had finally been connected. The world was looking with more possibilities. Heck, maybe even European civilizations. So, European civilizations they would. Not this episode. Hehehe. These guys would explore from here, and they'd go from here. Well, they basically already knew what was there. Eventually, their explorers would meet up, and deduce that, yeah, this is all also desert, and the world would kind of come to a quiet place. Nothing was really happening around the world anymore. Every government was just focusing on itself and on the people. Some places were way more exciting than others, but isn't that the charm of it all? The fact is that, you have something to come back to after a couple days? Well, thanks for watching. This has been History Nerd, and thank you for waiting like a month for episode 5. Bye.